嘿，大家好，欢迎来到区块先生的人物放大镜节目。So today we have David here, and this is one of our new sector where we interview industry player to kind of see what they're seeing, what they're thinking, and then to share their insight with us. So yeah, welcome, David.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we'll kick off with your introduction. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think introduction wise, it's pretty simple, right? I'm a fund manager. Effectively, other people give me crypto, I manage it for them, and then I invest in really aspiring new entrepreneurs that's building towards the future of Web3 and crypto. As many of you probably have not heard, but OP Crypto, first of all, it does not stand for other people's crypto. So for us, we're an early stage crypto venture fund that really focuses on investing in some of the earliest entrepreneurs and being very hands-on with our investment. But previously, I think more interestingly enough, I was a professional gamer where OP as a term came to be, where it stood for overpowered in the gaming sector. But for us, building a brand, it's more about all the different adjectives that starts with OP. We're open and very transparent to our investors and our portfolios. We're very operational, very hands-on with every investment that we do to really help out the investments that we do put forth. And also, we're very opportunistic in looking at all the different future of what crypto and Web3 will to be, and really capitalizing on every opportunity that comes by, and making sure that we're very delicate in putting forth that opportunity as well.
Nice. I didn't think it's called other people. I directly thought like overpower.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a joke that a lot of US people kind of do, because when I speak at conferences, that's sort of the joke that they make. But before I was as a professional gamer, I was an investment banker. I also did my own Web2 startup in the event-based social networking space, where I started in 2013, where the O2O era really came to be. And it's kind of making like the meetup.com, but for the Asia and China market, more specifically in Xiamen, where it's like a tourist area where people are looking in to come in and figure out what to do. So really got into the internet space at a very young age. And then started to get into crypto after I decided to join Qiming Venture Partners, which is one of the largest Web2 VC firms, managing now over $9 billion, and helping them think about really the crypto blockchain investment thesis. But also, like, because of sort of their mandate of not being able to go into crypto full time, I decided to then pivot into Huobi to lead their investments and global strategy for the past 3.5 years before starting my own fund.
Mm-hmm. So you were at Huobi for how long?
3.5 years.
3.5 years. Got it. And tell us about your time at Huobi.
Yeah, I took on quite a number of different roles, but I think when I first entered, it was really my first stint into like holistically all in crypto, right? So I think as I was looking for a place to land in sort of the late 2017, early 2018 time period, there weren't that many very established or even legitimate companies at the time. So I thought, coming to like a large exchange like Huobi, like I'm able to really build my exposure with almost like a God's eyes view on the whole space, right? Because everything ultimately goes through the exchange, whether it's investments, whether it's like ecosystem collaborations, whether it's trading, whether it's listing to get visibility on the exchange. Like there's so many different ways where Huobi played its part to grow the ecosystem that I thought, by being an early member of the team there, I'm able to get really great access, really great exposure, but at the same time, really build out my investment resume to really lead Huobi to, a bigger global vision, but also help them, see some of the earliest deals in the space as well.
Yeah, and that was like, I like to call it one of the craziest time in crypto, right? The 2017. Yeah. And then the Huobi, I guess before the ban, which also happened in 2017, like Huobi were considered, I guess, one of the biggest exchange at the time, right?
Yeah. So I think all the way since its founding in 2013, all the way until probably 2021, it was always one of the top 3 exchanges. Like it will fluctuate between, Huobi, Binance, and then OKX. Really during the time that I was there, around my 3 years there. But I think ultimately, like what led to Huobi's rise was obviously because they're just of its large presence in Asia, right? Not only in China, but because the retail consumer adoption is so magnified, right? Everyone was trading crypto. Everyone was sort of getting involved in the space. And also it had a massive amount of user base as well, right? So by far it had one of the largest volumes. I think when I first joined, it was still on its way up, but I think one of our top statistics was that it had over 10 million users across 170 countries. And, daily sort of revenue was at one point like $17 million a day, right? So it was just crazy statistics that we saw in the height of the 2018 bull market.
And how did the China crypto ban in 2017 affected Huobi at the time?
Well, I think it didn't affect Huobi as much as it really empowered Binance to really take shape as a predominant player in the space. Because when it first happened, the China ban, Huobi, OKX, and a bunch of other exchanges natively within China had to all, shut down sort of RMB deposits and trading across all its platforms. That's where, Binance, as sort of an overseas exchange, but also being ran by the Canadian Chinese founder, CZ, came in and really swooped in and took a lot of sort of the market share because they were the only ones operational during the China ban. And they introduced a concept of Tether, right? Where, people can then deposit RMB to get Tether and use Tether to trade crypto via crypto to really allow people to, come in and still not and be active with crypto when all the other Chinese exchanges had to really figure out a new way to pivot themselves to get back in the game.
Got it. And before that, there were like Yunbi and a lot of these other guys, and they all take RMB as a...
Yeah, so when the China ban happened, I guess, it's less so about the platform, but more so of its founders, right? I think a lot of like what Yunbi and a lot of these other Chinese local exchanges, everyone was very, very terrified of like what could potentially happen to them if they persist to allow the exchange to continue to operate. A lot of them took a very conservative route and just, kind of seized off its customers and really just took at what they already had and like, and ultimately operation could never just keep up after after sort of the China ban because they lost their presence, they lost their lead, and they lost sort of their footing in the space, right?
Got it. And from that experience, you went to New York, and then...
Yeah, so I think that's also led to the founding of OP Crypto, right? So when I first went to New York was actually on business for Huobi. It was, remember, the height of COVID. I don't think anywhere in their right mind will go to New York at that moment in time. But I think for Huobi, as there were sort of rumblings as to sort of the foresight of 2021 like the next crackdown for China crypto ban. Huobi really thought to expand its overseas and international presence. And as myself, being the only U.S. citizen in the entire executive team at Huobi, like I was sent over to the U.S. to really look at sort of how we can set up more of an international presence for our exchange, but also look for investment opportunities. So, during my trip there, I really saw that the venture market has started to take off drastically quite again, because in really 2019, early parts of 2020, like a lot of our investment capabilities were stopped because there weren't that many opportunities available. But during sort of the end of 2020 was when sort of the start of the bull run really came to be, and sort of DeFi summer really fueled a lot of that. And at the end of the day, like I just saw that not only was there's a ton of investment opportunities available, but there was a massive void in the US market for someone that can really help some of the Western entrepreneurs connect to the Asia resources, right? Whether it's, exchanges like Huobi, OKX, Binance, et cetera, for the exchange listing side of things, whether it's like Asia user acquisition for some of the user base, managing the Discord, building up the Telegram community channels, really on-ramping some of the early initial seed users for the projects, but also just really tapping into the Asia market as a whole, right? There was no like institutional venture capital fund in the US market that was really able to connect the two borders, but also had a very innate understanding of how the exchanges operated, or like how sort of to navigate the scene in Asia. Because pretty much by the end of 2020, like every single Asian or Chinese person, because of COVID, had already went back to China. Yeah. Again, like no one in their right mind would want to be in the US, because that was like top, like really bad shape in terms of COVID across the board. And I think that was a blessing in disguise, not like myself in that position. I think, I was then able to solidify myself as the person to go to for investment, tapping into the Asia market and being able to fill that void where a lot of the other US institutional VCs aren't able to, right? And it's also very complementary when I invest in a deal along with some of the top tier 1 US VCs to be able to handle a lot of that eastern side of the market alongside with them. Then together we're able to capture, the global market share for a lot of the projects that we invest in.
And that's when you start raising Fund 1 for OP? Or?
Yeah, so Fund 1 for OP happened really, really fast. So I finalized my my departure from Huobi in July of 2021, a little bit later than how I expected, because when I first had the idea was sort of early in 2021, but obviously being a part of a really large organization, there's a lot of sort of overhead that I had to really, have someone take over a lot of my responsibilities, but also hand over a lot of the tasks that I've done for the last 3.5 years during my tenure at Huobi. So that turnaround period, was a lot of back and forth with our CEO, but also to, have Huobi be essentially one of our first investors in the fund. So that negotiation process took a couple months and really solidified itself, towards July, when I was able to finally set it off on my own, have the Huobi investment into the fund. And then subsequently after, we raised hard cap 50 million from a lot of the more so institutional investors in New York, where now that I've set up my office there, folks like Bill Ackman, like DCG, Galaxy Digital, Genesis, Animoca, a lot of really like large listed companies in the institutional space, but also very prominent, individual hedge fund managers like Bill Ackman and Alan Howard from Brevin Howard, et cetera.
Got it. And tell us a bit about like some of the deals that you've seen in 2020 that were in the States and trying to, reach the Asian market, and how do you help them bridge between the West and the East?
Yeah, so when I first really started investing, was actually 2021, right? I think anything before 21 was, the work that I did for Huobi, right? Yeah. And some of the key deals I did at Huobi, are some of the top layer ones, like Terra, Polkadot, Algorand. Polkadot, Algorand I worked more closely to because the Western market layer ones, right? Where Terra, is kind of solidified the space as sort of an Asian predominant protocol. But especially for Polkadot, they were able to build a massive China market share. And some of the biggest Polkadot whales are from China, particularly because when the Polkadot core team first came to China, it was I that was leading Huobi Labs at the time, that took Polkadot across 5 different cities in China to do a series of meetups in China to really promote parity technologies as a developer shop to teach Substrate to local developers, but also to really transcribe a lot of the Polkadot ecosystem to really build a lot of the ambassadors in China. So went to Hangzhou, to Shanghai, to Beijing, to Chengdu, to Shenzhen in this 1 month long trip to really instill sort of the presence of DOT to sort of the China market. And not only did we do that, but we sort of got in collaboration with them to OTC a lot of their early pre-sale Polkadot investment opportunities to a lot of the local VCs like Hashkey, I think IOSG and whatnot, and also individual investors as well. So everyone was like all in on Polkadot. And even on top of that, like in me bringing Ryan Zer, which is still the co-founder of Polkadot at the time and a previous co-founder of Polychain, brought him in a meeting with our CEO Leon, to really take that conversation forward to have Huobi be the first one to list Polkadot, and we were able to get that done and secured as well. And that was also what solidified a big presence for Polkadot within China and the greater Asia market, right? And because of that success, we replicated effectively the same strategy for Algorand, right? Where I led a lot of the efforts for Algorand coming into China as well. Bringing a lot of the core team to the universities, collaborating with like Beijing Youdian Daxue or like a lot of these local universities that are attracting talent, but also as node providers for Algorand. And again, Huobi was the first to list Algorand, before Binance as well. So for both of these projects, I think we played, at least I played an integral part of bringing both of those ecosystems to the China market and also listing them on Huobi as the first initial launch, right? So these are the things that I've done that I was then able to replicate for a lot of our portfolios as well, right? Mirror Circle was actually, our second investment ever in the fund. And like we did a lot of work helping them to run, Asia community channels, putting them in touch with all the big exchanges for exchange listings, and also help them a lot with the different partnerships within Asia. And that sort of allow us to play a very pivotal role to then subsequently a lot of our other portfolios that we have, like, Stake Wallet or like Azuro or a lot of our other portfolios that I think in the swing, like ultimately, like everyone wants a piece of the Asia market. It's just like, I think no one really knows how to navigate it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think, it seems like crypto, even after 2022, is still very, very Asian focused.
Yes.
It is international, but a lot of the retail buying power comes from Asia. So, and I think it's crucial for projects to find funds that can kind of bridge that and support that. But yeah, so you talk a bit about your portfolio with Azuro and Mirror Circle. Can you kind of tell us about what's your core investment thesis?
Yeah, I think ultimately us as fund managers here, like we're only as good as like what we have done in the past, or like it's a consolidation of all of our experiences and expertise that we've collected all over the years, right? So myself as a professional gamer, I started and sold a Web2 social startup. my COO and head of research has one of the biggest NFT alpha groups in all of Asia. So our three really big verticals that really focus a lot of our energy on is really gaming, coming from my background as a gamer for 10 plus years. In the really like SocialFi, really Web3 social space where we're really able to tap into the end user and content creators and really dictating sort of the future of Web3 social. And in addition to Lucas's expertise in really the NFTs digital collectible space, but all in all, right, like in addition to sort of all of our experiences in these three big verticals, like we really very much believe that the future of Web3 applications will be inherently different from how Web2 applications are being done. So we're really like, I don't know if we coined the term, but we very much, are in sort of in the investment thesis to invest in really the infrastructure layer for applications, right? A lot of people would talk about, they're just investing in infra or middleware or a lot of different things on the technology substack. What we really focus on is the application layer stack and like what is sort of the infrastructure that needs to be built to ensure that we have the best user experience for Web3 applications for the future, right? So the future of gaming, the future of digital collectibles, the future of like, social paradigms that we're able to do, right? And a lot of the things that we're able to invest in, whether it's, data analytics, whether it's, on-chain custody, whether it's, a lot of the on-chain credit scores or like a lot of the gaming guilds or a lot of the sort of the in-game interoperability for in-game items, all of these things, right, coming together that creates a holistically better experience for users coming in to use Web3 applications for the first time.
And what are some of the portfolio that reflect these theses?
Yeah, so I think at the start of when we launched a fund, we had a pretty big gaming thesis, right? When you talk about all the gaming infrastructure that we've invested in, like Merit Circle as sort of one of the premier gaming and in-house build guilds from the European market, like Stardust that works on like, interoperability for in-game items and sort of in-house smart contracts. And, Tavern that does like, in-game data analytics, and also like ReNFT that does like gaming, NFTs, lending, right? All of these sort of different tools that kind of allow for a differentiated gaming experience. But so this was in 2021 where we saw gaming as a premier way to really bring the next, 100 million users, 100 million plus users to the space in a way that feels natural, right? That in a way where, we're really able to get mass adoption for people coming into the space for the first time. So we thought that was a very good portal of entry for new consumers. But in some of our recent investments, where we're looking a lot into really the social space, right? Like how do we make the end user experience better for the content creators, for the influencers, for people that are looking to build their own brand, right? And that incentivization structure to allow them to really be able to market and distribute to their end user base, right?
Got it. And when you talk about game and GameFi, right? We've on our channel we've done tons of the GameFi review, the early days with Axie Infinity back in 2019. We've done, the YGG review, MC, Star Atlas, and so on. But it seems like most of, it's kind of when I look at DeFi, it itself, it's something new. A lot of people talk about it being kind of, taking the centralized financial system and then created a decentralized version. But it's a lot more than that. It has multiple layer that is unique in crypto and blockchain. But for GameFi, at least right now, it seems like it's, putting a plan in simple, just a game with a token, right? And it doesn't seem that unique where for DeFi, it can only exist like Uniswap, for example, Curve, it can only exist in crypto. You can't find it anywhere else outside of blockchain. But, for most of the game right now in crypto, you find better version of them outside of crypto.
Yeah.
So do you envision, I guess, a new sort of GameFi that is unique for crypto and can kind of only exist in crypto?
Yeah, definitely. So I've thought a lot about this specific question. And again, I don't think there's any right answer, but I do want to draw from my prior experience as a pro gamer in Dota, right? Yeah. So when we think about like how was Dota first created, right? It was not even a standalone game where people can go and play and purchase. It was created from within the game, right? When we think about Dota, it's just a UGC created, modular map within Warcraft 3, right? That people really kind of were able to iterate over time. But when we think about like Dota as a monetizational method for the creators, right? It didn't actually make any money for them within Warcraft 3, the game, right? So I think ultimately how, the future of gaming will be is that like, I'm very, very bullish on like UGC creation of content, right? But having the proper infrastructure and incentivization module to be able to properly incentivize those people to really create their own game and be able to really capture their own user base from that, right? So when you look at like IceFrog and Pendragon, the people that created Dota, they ultimately had to create League of Legends, which is an entirely new game in a separate platform that creates massive amount of users, right? So I think like in the future, it's just like how we're able to spin up applications, right? And like, different sort of, I guess, small or mini games that people are able to create very easily. Right now, creating a game is extremely, extremely hard. It's like a multi-year effort, right? Many of us, a lot of my friends, were still waiting on Diablo 4. It's been almost 10 years now. But I think that's the nature of like blockchain technology, where like a lot of development is open source, right? A lot of things are easily able to be compounded upon existing technology, right? So I think the future of gaming is very much about having the right infrastructure in place so that you can build easy to build games fairly fast. It doesn't have to be one of these very, very complex games. I think it's going to start from very, very simple to play games from sort of the early beginning entries, but also ultimately level up over time, right? Because the gaming experience is only going to get better and better. But I think the first iteration games is always going to be very, very simple to play games, but very easily to be built by people that have that creative vision, they're able to capture more niche market without having to really consume like 100+ person developer team to be able to create, right? So I think that's like the economic side of it, right? Where someone creating a game will know that they have a lot of sort of economic scalability from their end. But the second aspect of it is like the future of gaming is very much like going to be different from me controlling a random character on screen that you kind of create and control his movements, but that person has no personal tie to you, right? I think the future of gaming is always going to be like you yourself in some version of the metaverse, right? Whether it's like, being customized by your own FTs or customized by some of your own on-chain activities or your on-chain personas or your followers, et cetera. It's technology will evolve to a level where it's like everything you do online will just be you, but a different alternative version of you where you're able to tap into different realms of reality where you're not able to do physically in this world, right? For example, like why is Grand Theft Auto or why is some of these, highly sort of combative or like highly sort of risky games where like you're stealing a car, you're robbing a bank, you're like shooting someone in the head, or like you're fighting someone, right? None of these things is like physically feasible in the real life, but then you're able to, do that in a sort of virtual or metaverse space. But imagine if that's you, right? Like, I think everyone dreams to have superpowers, right? And like really gaming, like the future of Web3 gaming is very much just going to be like you enhancing yourself with superpowers, and you decide, you wake up today, hey, I'm going to be Superman, right? I'm going to go conquer the world, right? In whatever sort of realm of possibility that I want. Or like today, I'm just going to be a robber, right? I'm going to go rob a bank and see how sort of that experience is, right? I think a lot of gaming it's like an alternate reality of all the things that we really want to try in the physical world, but without consequences, right? Or more or less without like you being able to go to jail or like, and I think that would be just super exciting in the world that we live in, right? Yeah. It's almost like Ready Player One, but like you're able to live a different alternate, like, but closer to life, right? Yeah. Type of thing, right?
And I mean, that's kind of like the, when Facebook, changed their entire, name to Meta, right? And kind of, catapult the whole metaverse Web3 idea. But I feel like a lot of those things that you just mentioned, with GTA 5, with League, with Dota, or even some of the latest game like Elden Ring, Death Stranding, Cyberpunk 2077, a lot of these are already happening without Web3, without blockchain, without crypto. And to me, it seems like right now, it seems like token it's kind of that magic work here, right? Is that you need token to truly become, I guess, a crypto project. Without a token,
I would actually strongly disagree there, because I think a lot of these gaming projects are forcing a token, but the really innate advantage about Web3 is less about having a token where it gives you, I guess token is really the incentivization factor for the creators, right? For them to, how to make money, or for the users to have a way to contribute. But it's really like, what really makes Web3 powerful is the ownership aspect of it, right? Where it's like everything in game you own yourself. It's not like whatever sort of you use in Web3 is belonging to someone else, right? I think it's like whenever you port to a new game, you always have to start from square one, right? Whereas in the future Web3 game, I very much see like, as myself, it's just like, for example, like if we consider real life as a game, right? Like I've gotten to how far I am today, and you've gotten to how far you are today. We have our own relativity net worth. We have our own assets. If we wake up the next day, things should still be there, right? Like if you remember waking up every day, you have to start over. How frustrating that would be, right? So I think it's just like in Web3, it kind of feels like that. No one wants to go to a new game, or has less incentive to go to new games. So you always have to start from square one every single time. Yeah. But like, I think the future Web3 is like all the things you own will go with you. Not everything will be 100% interoperable, but I think we're in the work in progress that will make it 100% interoperable, right? All the assets you have, all the cash you have, whether you're spending Grand Theft Auto or Call of Duty, should be like just cash, right? And like, you shouldn't have to like level up. Like you should just be someone of you, right? And you don't, like, for example, like right now we have all the things that are belongings, like we're in Taiwan right now, but if we go to Thailand tomorrow, like sure, we'll have some limited access, right? But like we'll be able to still port over a lot of our assets, even if we're in Thailand, right? Whether it's bringing back cash or like wire, or like have our connections there. And I think that's what makes like is so much more powerful, is being able to have ownership over something and being able to continue to build and compound on that ownership so that it transcends beyond just one individual sort of a metaverse or not, right?
I really like that idea. And it kind of, reminds me of DeFi Summer, where, and DeFi itself is kind of like a game, right? Where
everything's a game. Maybe we're living maybe someone's controlling us. I don't know.
Who knows? But in DeFi, like for example, back in the early days when you farm YFI through Balancer, through Curve, and then you farm Compound, and if you farm all of those, you kind of level up, right?
Yeah.
You have all these assets of tokens that you earn from all these early farms, and you level up, and then you go farm Sushi Shop, which is the next thing. Then you go farm ESD, which is the next thing, Basis Cash, whatever. All these things until you farm the wrong thing, you get rock pool, and you die in the game, right? So it itself seems like DeFi is a game, and a lot of the successful VC back in, even now were early DeFi farmer that were dominating the game, right? It's kind of like what you said, you do good on this game, you can bring your assets to another game so you don't have to restart your life. In a sense, DeFi is that if you play it well, you can grow those wealth and move it on and dominate another DeFi. Because all the early DeFi summer stuff where if you have stable coins, you stake it and you can pretty much dominate the TVL, dominate, the early farm rewards. Fascinating. I mean, to me, I've done quite a few, GameFi video. I myself is a big gamer as well, play Elden Ring, Cyberpunk, all the way to more anime stuff like Pokemon as well. Yep. And then I feel like a lot of these big IP seems like the perfect candidate for GameFi project. What do you think is kind of stopping them from entering crypto? I'm talking about like Final Fantasy, or even all these, Elden Ring is also from Japan, right? All these like big IP. Why are they hesitating to come into Web3?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like the dilution of their brand, right? They have such a big legacy brand that like they want to really consolidate a lot of their resources to what they have existing, right? So when you think about the nature of Web3, it's very much about really distributing power back to the people, back to the consumers, and giving a lot of that governance to the power users of the platform rather than maintaining control, right? When you look at all the biggest IPs in the world, like, Hello Kitty, Pokemon, Marvel, Final Fantasy, I'm not sure if it's up there, but like, all of these things are very, very legacy and archaic businesses, right? That kind of have just lived off of their IP. And like innovation is something that is really like treading waters, right? They don't want to like take it too far where it might damage their brand, right? They're very much happy with just printing new volumes of like similar things that they know will work, right? Like there's no incentivization for them to really deviate from the original existing plan that's printed them, and made generational wealth for, all of its founders and sort of their partners globally across the world. But when you think about Web3, it's like why that can't be created by like a very small consortium of people is because I think I'm very much in the belief of a future of a very much UGC created world where it's like Meta is not going to decide what the metaverse is going to look like. Like it's the people that really decide, right? Like I should be able to create my own version of the metaverse and like how I see the world, right? And if people see eye to eye with my vision, they will join my metaverse. It's not like Meta deciding for the whole world what the metaverse will look like, because it's just like they can't speak for everyone in the world, right? There's so many people with so many differentiated ideas that it's impossible to create a perfect version of the world where like everyone can buy into. And people don't want to also be part of that world where it's like it's so centralized, the power is so dominate within a couple of individuals that like it's similar to like these big IP companies, just like they shouldn't dictate like what we like, what we don't like, because people tastes evolve massively over time, right? If you think about like what you like today versus what you like 10 years ago, it's completely different, right? And like when you think about the IPs, right, they're really just have such a big profile of people that like they're more or less not even catering to you as an individual now, but they're catering to the new version of you that comes after you 10 years from now, right? So they're always churning new people that are coming in, but they will lose consumers over time. But because they have such a big distribution channel, like they're not really afraid about losing a big chunk at a time. But I think at the end of the day, right, new pioneer technology will always replace old and incumbent ones if they don't pivot. And like think about Kodak, right? Think about AOL, think about MySpace, MSN, all of these big incumbent companies, right? It's really like the newer companies that are closer to what the average person wants, right? That are able to really capture attention of the new comings.
And you know, you talk a lot about the user generated content. Yeah. What do you think about like kind of the to earn economy? You know, we've seen Steppen kind of pioneer Axie Infinity pioneered the play to earn, and Steppen does the move to earn. So are you suggesting something like create to earn?
Well, I think it's like, it's not everything is just, I think everything is to earn. For example, like I think anything that you do should have some economic effect, whether it's like social effect, whether it's monetary effect, whether it's like you're benefiting others, right? I think that to earn concept can literally be applied anywhere. But I think at the end of the day, right, it just within human psychology or the human dynamics, like if you create something meaningful and if you create something that people want, you should be incentivized or you should be compensated for you doing something that ultimately people are going to buy into, right? So that's not even like everything is create to earn. If you think about it, what is something that is not create to earn, right? Because like unless you just literally you made garbage, right, and like no one wants it, then that's maybe something that like doesn't have monetary pull, or it doesn't have sort of any type of attraction at all. But effectively anything that anyone ever creates or anything that anyone ever does will be assigned some type of monetary value or economic value to it, right? And I think that's very much goes with how the future work is going to be, right? I think, for example, like you and I, right? Like I'm not just a fund manager, right? Sure, that's like my professional job. But like I'm sure like there are many other activities that you've done throughout your life that gives you some sort of value in return, right? Whether you lend a helping hand to a friend, they might give you, a present in return for you helping them out. Whether, you're doing investments on your own, right? Whether you're doing a podcast to, spotlight someone, right? Or whether you're just, playing poker, right? Or like a lot of these different activities that you ultimately do, as long as there's value generated, as long as like your time is being put to a cause, right? There's always some economic type of return back to you, right? And I think, that ultimately shapes to be how people are going to work going forward, right? It's not like, hey, I'll work at Amazon for the next 30 years of my life and literally doesn't do anything else, right? I think every single person, now that the internet is so fluid, they'll have multiple roles, they'll wear multiple hats, and like anyone can almost do anything as long as they're being compensated the right way, right? And I think that's the power of Web3. It's like you're able to have instant gratification for almost any activity that you ultimately do on chain, right? Which is extremely difficult for Web2, because it's like for someone to actually pay you, right? Like legally, right? There's some like employment contract, there's like you have to sign them on and fire them. Like it's like part-time gigs are like, except for like manual labor where you're like mowing someone's lawn or cleaning someone's dishes, like it's extremely tedious, right? It's just like all the documentation back and forth, right? Like But I think there will be a system in the future of Web3. It's like everything is very quantifiable, right? And like pretty much everything you do has some sort of monetary value to it, and it will be assigned to that monetary value. And you can just decide at this day, in this hour, in this minute, you want to do that thing, and you know that you'll get XYZ dollars or tokens in return, right?
Yeah, and I guess a huge part about Web3 is, you know, anonymous, right? Anonymity, where you know, you could have a cartoon image as your profile. You know, people don't really look at your background, you know, which college you went to, you know, color of your skin, you know, where you're from. They only care about, you know, what you can create, you know, what value you can bring. And that's very different from, you know, real life, where there, you know, this happens everywhere, where you can bring great value, but people look down on, maybe you don't have a college degree, you know, maybe you don't have some sort of, you know, certificate, and then you lose the opportunity, and you kind of just, but you know, I've seen so many people in Web3 where, you know, some are even, you know, under the age, you know, you know, high school students, and they're able to, you know, produce high quality contents, you know, either in coding or, you know, writing a piece of article about a project and so on. And I've heard so many stories where they will tell me like it would be impossible for them to do this outside of Web3. It will be impossible because they're always being looked down.
Right. I mean, I think that's like what makes Web3 a really purely meritocratic society, right? When you think about how Web2 is structured, a lot of it is really seniority, right? You have to really climb the ranks. You have to be at a certain level before you can do XYZ things. And like just sharing an experience from just early days of OP Crypto, we hired this guy called, you know, No Sleep John. Some of you probably follow him. He has quite a bit of followers on Twitter. And like, we had no idea who he is, right? And like, after we hired him, it turns out he's just an 18-year-old kid, right? And like, you know, the content that he created, you know, the sort of his level of maturity and like his sort of way of thinking and how Web3 native he is surpasses some of, you know, the highly qualified candidates that we see on paper versus like this guy just produces, right? And like, that just goes to show you, right? Like a lot of it is much more about like what you can do and what you've shown to be able to do rather than like what credentials that you have, right? And I think a lot of it is just a combination of passion, sort of your ability to learn, and like your ability, your willingness to put out and to work hard, right?
Got it. And let's kind of bring back the topic to OP. You know, I'm sure there are a lot of viewers and founders. What would you say, you know, are what do you look in early founder, and then what should they do to get your attention?
Yeah, so I think a lot of founders are always looking and seeing what other people are doing, right? I think that's a lot of times you need to be able to demonstrate your own unique level of thought process and thinking, right? So I think most people really don't have truly unique ideas, right? I think that's something that very much we look for first and foremost, right? To have something that you're extremely passionate on and you're extremely contrarian in the way of thought and like how you want to approach a problem. Maybe a lot of people see a lot of different problems in the space, but I think it's really your thought process that very much differentiates yourself from the pack, right? A lot of people come in with like, we're like XYZ of an existing platform, right? I think a lot of times that's kind of a turnoff for us because like for you to be really a pedestal on your own, like you have to have something that like more or less hasn't been attempted before, right? And a lot of times you don't even have a way to describe it. I think that's what makes us really excited to be able to be heads-on to be able to brainstorm with that founder to really help them craft, that really innovative and out of the world ordinary idea, right? So I think that's first and foremost that we look for. And second is really a combination of passion and existing sort of traction of really hard work, right? I think like people, a lot of time, that's why we didn't really invest in the height of the bull market, because I feel like too many people were chasing for ideas. Too many people were just copying other people's ideas. People are just catching the hype. And we still have almost 80% of our fund that's still undeployed, waiting for the really serious people that are passionate about building something that is going to be making a big impact in the space in their own unique sense and form, right? And third is like, I think really be able to have someone that's coachable, right? I think a lot of founders, after they've made their sort of first pot of gold, are quite arrogant, right? And like, it doesn't matter that you've made a lot of money. Like there's a lot of people that have made a lot of money in this space, right? But I think at the end of the day, right, if we don't see ourselves as people where we don't see you as someone that we can very actively work with, to be actively able to give you resources, but at the same time, give you input and feedback that you'll be able to take in that resource impact or input, then it's just not a good material fit, right? So I think really the combination of those three is like what we truly look for as a founder that we're meeting for the first time.
Okay. And so for the viewer, OP Crypto has given us their Telegram ID. If you have interesting idea, you can either email them or send them a message on Telegram.
Yeah, I mean, I think also the other way, I mean, we're just now, building up our Twitter presence. I unfortunately, have spent the past 10 years in China where Twitter was banned. So this is a newer initiative for us. So we have our institutional account called OP Crypto VC, but also we created our own anonymous, meme account called OP DGen, where like we kind of really showcase the world some of the ideas that we're thinking that should be built, that like we're not suggesting that you just copy our ideas from the OPDGen account, but some of those like might inspire you to, think along that direction to be able to, do something that you're passionate about in some of the newer verticals in the space. So that's also an account that we very much recommend you following to hear the latest updates from us, to see some of our latest commentary, but also be able to engage with us in a very sort of friendly and casual level as well.
Got it. And some of the last few questions I wanted to ask, obviously November and the last of 2022 has just been hardcore. I want to kind of get your feedback on what do you think about FTX, and how do you think crypto can kind of recover trust after FTX?
Yeah, I think it's like first coming from an investor perspective, right? Obviously FTX raised, I think 5 or 6 rounds just in this year alone, right? And when we think about like, as later stage growth investors, we don't really participate in, but like, I think it's also important to have people know that if you are doing growth stage investments, some of these later stage investments, is that like you're still taking on a ton of systematic risk, right? Like when you're investing at FTX at like a $30 billion valuation, it doesn't mean just that because they're at a $30 billion valuation, they're a safe investment, right? Where it's like, it might not 100x, but it would not go to zero, which apparently in this case with like Voyager, with BlockFi, with FTX, all et cetera, like these are not safe investments. Even if they made it to sort of that like Series D or Series E level, right? Whereas for Web 2, I think has quite a bit more downside protection than crypto. Because I think crypto, like things could just, like a lot of market systematic risk or a lot of like founder risk in this case for FTX, a lot of sort of intransparency for all these centralized platforms are just things that if you're really crypto serious, that you have to be cognizant of, right? I think for any of us that are in the crypto space for 6+ years or longer now, that we're very much in belief of the future of crypto in a very sort of perfect information asymmetry world where it's like more or less things are more transparent, transactions are done on chain, and you really being ones to self-custody your own assets, right? I think that's, again, makes it extremely important to, if you haven't done so before, to start getting in this habit of like really maintaining control of your own assets and being responsible for your own money, right? Which, our parents taught us at a very young age with our own piggy bank, right? It's like, if you lose your piggy bank, then it's like, that's your own fault, right? And if you give your piggy bank to someone else to manage, and that's again your own fault, right? But I think it's like going forward from this day on forward, I think it's very important for all the viewers to recognize that you just have to take your own sense of ownership. You have to take your own sense of responsibilities. Try not to defer those responsibilities to others when you can do a lot of that yourself, right? And a lot of it is like, you have to do your own research before investing in a lot of this stuff. No investment in crypto is 100% safe play, right? And yeah, I think, coming out of this FTX saga, I think it just, people that really go forward from here will become more and more serious, right? A lot of sort of the less serious people are now washed out. And I think I'm very much looking forward to the world 2023 and beyond, where, we're able to back some of these new entrepreneurs that's tackling some of these problems in the space.
Awesome. And, I guess lastly, you're in Taiwan and you're going back to China as well. What would you say to, I guess, and what would you look for to some of the project in the APAC?
Yeah, so this is 2023 and beyond, right? We haven't launched this initiative fully, but coming in the new year, that's one of our New Year resolutions, is to really double down on Asia, right? And really solidify our presence here, where, this is my home, right? Like, coming born and raised in China, having spent, the past 10 years in China and greater parts of, Southeast Asia and even Taipei. This is my 5th time here. So for us, it's part of it is really, really increasing sort of our presence here to allow, some of the viewers here, but also like our partners, our portfolios, so anyone that comes in touch with us to have a better understanding of what we do, and our value add. And most of that is being able to take a lot of our institutional investors in the US and help some of the APAC portfolios and future invested companies that we'll do in Asia to really have a better international presence, not only in the US, but also, have a lot of sort of the institutional partners that we have on like really high quality, smart contract audits, right? Really high top-notch engineers from the US market, really good like PR, branding, and publishing from, the top journalists and publications from the Western media. And also, a lot of our co-investment network, which constitutes of some of the top tier 1 VCs, where are very complementary to, our investment style. And lastly, looking to build out a full suite of our back office here in Asia. So we are hiring, looking for, research analysts, operational people on the operational side, and also people on the portfolio support side to really help some of our Western entrepreneurs to really make a footing here in Asia. So we're very excited. I think especially Asia will be a big proponent of the new wave of bull run coming in perhaps the next 2 to 3 years. And we're really happy to finally be back to help grow the ecosystem and work with some of the best entrepreneurs here in this market.
Awesome. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You have any question for us?
Yeah, I thought we were doing some Chinese stuff. No.
Yeah, we'll do that after.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like. Oh, I didn't actually think of any questions.
No worries. I mean,
do you want me to ask you what type of? Is there questions you want me to ask?
No, good. I was thinking that I was talking with Lucas a little bit about some of the hackathon that we could do next year.
You mean Calvin or?
Oh, Calvin. Yeah, Calvin. I was talking with Calvin about it, and something I kind of want to do, and I think it's always important to do these hacker house hackathon, but hacker house is kind of limited geographically, but we could do something online where
definitely So I think one thing, should I ask it in the form of question or?
I mean, it's all good. I mean, we can use this.
Yeah. So I guess one thought that we have was, we really took advantage of our physical location in New York. So essentially, I was the founder and creator of the crypto house called the Alpha House in New York, where we have a 13,000 square feet house that really hosted some of the best crypto native events natively within New York. So we've hosted multiple hackathons, demo days, and with some of the best sort of layer one ecosystems. Like we did one of our latest hackathon was with BNB chain, but we've done a demo day with Polygon. We had a launch party with Polkadot. We had a hackathon with Near and Filecoin. So a lot of these are very sort of developer heavy events that we hosted, physically in New York. I don't think that's
what were some of the projects that came out from those
there's so many. I mean, I don't think you'll see some of the projects now because they've only happened within the past calendar year or this sort of 12 months. But I think over 300 projects has been compiled through our different demo days and hackathons that we've done in our space. And we really, not only were the judges in these events that we've held, but also, we're able to have our own version of open house physically within the house that invites these founders back after pre and after these hackathons to really bounce off ideas. But I think going forward, right, like physical aspect of it is good, but again, like you mentioned, it's not scalable, right? So going forward, 2023 is our new initiative is really to build a virtual sort of founders day that will able to consolidate a lot of our founders networks to be able to share ideas no matter where they are in the world and be able to bring experts like yourself to really come in and work with some of these early stage founders to see what ideas they're building and just be a very sort of casual and like non-judgmental type of forum to really have people be comfortable in sharing what they're doing.
Agree. I mean, there are times where, I've seen non-engineer, but just pure analyst or researcher that has great idea and has great token design that kind of guide the engineers to build a product. So, so I agree where it's important kind of to mash both technical, non-technical people and just kind of not being judgmental, just really open-minded. One of the key issue right now within crypto, especially in DeFi, is that everything is a fork of one another, right? When you go on DeFi Llama and you kind of look at the forks, every project's been forked multiple times. You have a Uniswap version on Avalanche, you have Uniswap on there. Phantom, Polygon, you have a sort of version of Compound, Aave everywhere. And then a lack of innovation. And there's a reason for that because of exploits and hack, where people are afraid to use these new products. And a lot of these projects, has loopholes that hasn't been exploited, not because no one knows. It's because people are kind of waiting for them to grow, then exploit them.
Right.
So all these are kind of reason and hurdles that slows down, DeFi and crypto overall. But yeah, I guess a lot of, there are tons of ideas for GameFi, tons of idea for metaverse. But at the end of the day, I guess you have kind of two vertical where the non-token side and the token side. And the token side will always have that issue with monetization, with token design, with that spiral. And people are always going to compare, they're going to compare the price. You could have a really good idea and a good project, but the price doesn't perform well. There is always going to have criticism.
Yep.
Cool. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, David. And we'd like to do another one when you're back.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. 好。然后如果你今天在 YouTube 上看的话，请帮我订阅，然后把小铃铛点开，你就不会错过下一集。谢谢这个 transition。如果你觉得今天直播你有学到新的东西，也帮我把影片给分享出去。区块现在的每日直播是每周一、每周三、每周五呢都会讲最新的区块链新闻，然后各种加密货币跟去中心化金融 DeFi。我们明天见，拜拜。